Welcome to episode 109 of the Sleep Whisperer podcast. Carla Ferrara is a functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner specializing in Lyme, mold, and chronic conditions. Education and work as a systems design engineer taught her how to work with complicated systems. These concepts, combined with personal challenges and curiosity, spurred her on to deep dives into a broad base of disciplines including fitness training, yoga, energy, medicine, nature, environment, food system, domestic abuse and family mediation, education, health coaching, genetics, and traditional Chinese medicine focused on Lyme disease, mold infections, and other chronic health conditions. She provides a unique whole body perspective on helping people with complicated health concepts. Mold toxicity is deeply impactful on all health. Carla's personal journey through handling her mycotoxins is vulnerable, painful, and inspiring all at once. For me, it shook me within myself, unable to comprehend the deep brain fog and the need to keep starting over that comes from mold toxicity. This is a conversation filled with raw experience. Even though it is debilitating and destructive, Carla teaches us the value of patience and curiosity for anyone struggling with mold issues. Carla is honestly vulnerable and it will touch you to the very soul. On a light note, my dog contributed to this conversation as well. Sleep is the trifecta of foundational healing tools. We cannot ever avoid facing sleep challenges. Improving sleep changes the healing pathway completely. Wherever you are on your health journey or with your sleep, take a listen to the deep conversations on the Sleep Whisperer podcast. It was only a while ago that I realized how much value is being offered by our featured guests. A podcast is free. You don't have to pay for programs or summits. However, the value within these conversations and masterclasses is as potent as within a program of very high investment. Commit to catching up as you scroll through the show and you will learn so much, just like I did. Hey everyone, I'm Deepa, Light Functional Medicine Practitioner, author and yogini, and you're listening to the Sleep Whisperer podcast, the only sleep podcast with conversations and meditations. I'm on a mission to share profoundly insightful sleep conversations with global visionaries that merge together functional medicine and ancient wisdom. Breathe in bliss through weekly guided meditations and let yourself enter the land of dreams. Together, let's unravel the pieces, get to the roots, and understand the right tools to transform your sleep completely. Through this podcast, I want you to dream the best version of yourself. It's time to regain hope and begin your sleep journey. Carla, it's a pleasure to have you and finally meet you as well. I've been waiting for this for quite a number of years, and we are speaking about a very serious conversation today, which I haven't actually explored in the past, which is mold, chronic illness, and sleep. And it's such a trifecta because everything is impacting the other. And I know you've got personal experience with this as well, but you mentioned to me about how with chronic illness, we need to come to a space of curiosity versus searching for solutions. And I really want us to begin by speaking about your journey in terms of realizing this for yourself, because this is something that a lot of people actually struggle with, where
they're struggling with several aspects of chronic disease, autoimmunity, and they're in this loop of perpetual figuring out the magical solution. And then it can get frustrating when they don't have a perfect solution. So what made you actually mention this phrase to me that, we need to move away from searching for solutions and instead looking at things with curiosity? And also just would love to, if you're open to talking about it, to just know about your own journey and struggle with mold, because it can be so deeply debilitating.
Yeah, and I guess to first start off, and it's really hard to separate that mold from other things going on. So we talk about that, and we talk about mold, but it's not really in and of itself. It's combined with this chronic disease, autoimmunity, and many times Lyme disease. So, and even using the word mold, it's really the mycotoxins from the mold, but just so sitting back from that, but commonly used mold because it's just easier to relate. But and I think it's so important. I guess I've always been a really curious person, and I think that's really helped me along the way. And I was curious in science. I went into science and studied as an engineer for many years, worked as an engineer. And I think that really gave me a different mindset, possibly a better mindset. And I remember when I was really sick, I didn't, I, it wasn't helpful for me to be in some of the forums that people got together who was sick, because it was just kind of really gloomy, and and they're like trying to, well, if I do this, do this, do this, and how we learn as functional medicine practitioners, you got to step back, and that's where I think my curiosity was a huge factor, and I knew, and a lot of times the medical community or the doctors that I did go to, that curious factor wasn't there. They were just trying to fix things, right? So so in the case when I had this autoimmunity and then Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease, instead of just a quick, I didn't know for years, and got reinfected, and then lived in a house with mold, and knew things were changing, where the mold was kind of presenting itself. I look back now, I'm not really sure what started, but being curious about my symptoms throughout, how they changed, uh, and this is going, 20 years probably. Then, that looking back, I keep stepping back. That gives me some perspective and some idea of how in my timeline things probably happened. So that, and it's that curiosity, and it's sometimes like I wake up and, something new has come up in my symptoms, and it's like, how does this fit in with the picture now? So I think I'm kind of rambling away from the question, but it really helps, and that's where it helps to have someone, you find a practitioner, a doctor that helps you, or even people you live with, and that help you kind of keep stepping back and see what is really going on and with me at this point, and what can I do about it. And it's like the last year I was really focusing in on my sleep, as a way to look at. So you have different perspectives you can look at because everything's so complicated. So I tend to kind of look at it in different perspectives as I learned about sleep. How can I use sleep to, better my sleep hygiene, or see what is coming up in my sleep that helps me figure out, what body system is not really happy right now. Because the mold infection affects every body system, and of course affects the fundamentals, especially especially sleep.
And Carla, you mentioned how the mold presents itself, which was hugely revealing for me in terms of a statement. So would you be able to talk us through some of those ways in which it actually presents itself? Because sometimes people who are not really in a space of understanding health or functional medicine, they might not even be aware of that this might be mold. So what would that look like in terms of symptoms and physiology, psychology, sleep, all of it?
So yeah, that's where, again, it's different for every person, right? And mold is, comes in, not everyone's going to be affected by, like if they live in a moldy house and they're in there for hours at a time. And people tend to be more in their house since we've been quarantined for a while, but they might not notice if they've got other things going on and they're focused on something else, Lyme disease or autoimmunity, or so it's hard to, and then all of a sudden, and you don't, like I said, you don't really know what came in. Mold is very opportunistic, so it could be within your body, just like most of us have heavy metals. We have all this type of bacteria in our bodies, and viruses, and what is really bringing down the immune system that lets these things kind of show up, or come out of their hide, and they tend to hide in the body and come out. So you kind of look at it that way. So in my case, it's just a sense that, after I was had chronic Lyme like 2 different times, so it was involved with different co-infections. So I had a little bit of different symptoms. Some came back, and then I started feeling like the brain fog was back again. Finding my words, really everyday words too. Or I'd want to say a sentence and it just didn't come out. And it seemed different, a different sense in my body. It's I don't know, a sense of dread. And that's where that curiosity piece comes in. Sometimes some of these infections, especially like mold, gives you this dreadful feeling. I know it sounds weird, and it can really counteract your curiosity, your optimism. It's because it affects your brain through many different ways, right? And then a lot of head stuff, sinuses. So mold loves the hollow spaces in your body, and it's really in general, bacteria. We think of our good gut bacteria, our bad gut bacteria, and how it's throughout our brain, our bodies, right? And they seem to kind of work together, and so does mold come into the body and kind of work with all these other heavy metals and these things. But mold has it's like a different personality. I don't know if I've ever heard that word used, but I guess that's my stepping back, and how do I make sense of it where others might understand. So it has a different personality, and so just feeling it, oh, and like a joint that won't heal, and it felt different than achy joints that I had with Lyme disease, assuming they were separate, and so, and I just couldn't use my shoulder, things like that. And I'm like, huh, that's different, that's weird. I went to physical therapy, and I kind of knew it had a mold aspect to it, I'm guessing, right? And then when we had to leave our house, moved away, within, a few months, my shoulder healed. So the looking back gives me kind of knowledge of what might be causing what. So that's my sense of mold, but it's usually still mixed in. But through my, so the last few years, I did training through uprooting Lyme, training from a traditional Chinese medicine aspect. So it's just, again, a whole different perspective. I've been 2 years, maybe 3 years in that field, and learning traditional Chinese herbs specific for Lyme or chronic disease. That the whole way they look at the body gave me is giving me another huge perspective on how the body and the mold and all these chronic infections affect the body, and how can we help possibly heal from it, and heal. And I think the biggest thing to stay away from, and you brought this up from the beginning, is to stay curious. It's like a lot of things. You're not going to ever get that clean slate at the end, that test that's going to say nothing, because the testing isn't really up to snuff. You are going for, this is my life. This is how I feel now. This is how I want to feel. And it's more of that journey than that discrete day you're going to say, I'm healed.
And I was just going to ask you, Carla, about how would someone actually know if they have mold? And you spoke about testing, but could you just at least let us know, how did you first realize that? And when you mentioned traditional Chinese medicine, my mind also went to Ayurveda, where the kapha body is the water body, which becomes the breeding ground for mold and bacterial overgrowth, and it's always about not allowing the water to stay stagnant like the pond.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, there's so many interconnections between Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, but I don't want us to digress. I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about how do we actually get to know if we have mold, and also what are of course, when you said it's not like one day you're fixed, but I'd definitely like us to walk through some of the recommendations that you did for yourself to begin that journey of just working through mold.
And yeah, it's funny, the Ayurvedic, I think that was something I kind of started studying probably like 10, 15 years ago, and tried to use it when thinking about when I was more a health coach, a personal trainer, and yoga instructor, all that. And I haven't really taken the time learning from the traditional Chinese medicine, I haven't really taken the time to go off and see how those compare too. But it's very much so, the concepts used in Chinese medicine are almost easier to work through. Of course, I use my functional medicine matrix, right? And I'm still kind of back and forth through the traditional Chinese medicine perspective and how, I learn a different way of doing it, intake, and it's a different process. And I'm still kind of back and forth on I still use my matrix, and how can I help one and the other? But and it was funny. I was studying this whole mold aspect, and I knew we had problems in our house. But I've been through this with autoimmune disease that was not, years back, was not diagnosed for years. And then Lyme disease, not diagnosed for years. And I knew this mold thing, and it's a big deal if you have mold in your house and you're feeling sick. So, and no one else around you understands that, right? And you get the whole, the whole money, the financial aspect. It can be overwhelming. And so I was actually at the ILADS conference. This was 2019, I think. Or yeah. Anyways, I was at the ILADS conference, and they brought up in this conference, it was on, it's really on Lyme disease. It was all about mold, and I'm sitting there, and it's got all the big names in the Lyme mold world, and I sitting there going, that's me, that's my house. And that's where my journey started. But I had to accept that it's a long journey, because it is your home. Not only your home as a body,
Yeah.
is, if you feel invaded once again, but it's a different type. Mold is more destructive. I don't know. I think of it as more mean, and can get in your body and get these wild parties going, and with the other bacteria, and hide out, and because some of these bacteria can be in your gut bacteria that you will find usually in your gut. They can be kind of bullied, sort of I guess my newer understanding of some, they can be affected or be brought into hanging around the wrong crowd, and and mold can be that way. So that's when I found someone there that does inspection, talked about it, and I had to talk to my family a lot, my husband, back and forth, and come to find out, my son, who hadn't lived in a house for a couple of years, and got him tested. We actually both tested positive for mycotoxins, where some people, it's that just you just might not find it. It's a urine test that we took, and it might be in your body, and it might not show up in your urine. So that's where the testing is. But that positive test, and going in knowing that nothing might show up, but something did, and from there, people and doctors, and especially my husband, our family, we could say, two of us, we both have mycotoxin. It's probably, or mold infection, it's probably from our house. And that starts a huge journey. And I guess I love to talk to people at the beginning of that journey before they start really testing, because it is a big load. Your home, your body is a home, your home is, and you've, and sometimes you start off, you have this instinct that you have mold, and you might go off on these tangents and put all this effort into testing your body and your home, and kind of go about it, and it can take all your energy away, which you're probably feeling pretty sick anyways. So I like to catch them at that point and at least tell them what I know at this point, knowing this might change. And to really, I think you need a guide right in the beginning, high level, how you've kind of look at the symptoms, look at the background, look at the timeline, what what um what body systems affected. Is it possible it's mold? And there's that whole genetics piece too. So me, my son, and some people have their genetics done, and so that is a clue too. For a lot of, and you can look beyond your mold susceptibility. And how, yeah, if your sleep's disrupted, that's an aspect too. So that was, yeah, that's a lot, but I
So,
hope that
no,
answered.
perfect, Carla, but you mentioned sleep disruption. Now, how did that look like for you? So is it that you just, is it a bidirectional axis where because you're not sleeping, you're weakening the immune system and therefore you're allowing for this proliferation? Or is it that this dysbiosis in the physiology is somehow contributing to the inability to fall or stay asleep? What is it looking like?
Yeah, so that's where what I've seen, a lot of the sleep challenges are usually have more than one thing going on. And I know I mentioned before, sometimes, you have multiple infections going on. And what is really kind of presenting at times, and that's I have a sense now about, so we can look through the lens of sleep or sleep challenges to see what might be the root causes, right? Or just working on the fundamentals of sleep and using the sleep to help heal, right? But there can be like a different sense of sleep problems. I think mine kind of changed as they went along, and the nature of them, and the type of dreams. These are things I wonder about. I've heard a little bit about, but I don't know a lot
Was
about
just
these
going
things.
to ask you about that, Carla, because
Yeah.
in Ayurveda, again, it's all about chaotic dreams with no sense, really pointing towards poor liver detoxification or distress in the gut. Whereas there is a world of difference between that kind of chaos in dreams versus actually intuitive and revealing dreams that happen from quality sleep. But of course, we can only guess at this, but
It's really about, all I can really say is talk about is my dreams, and sometimes I get good descriptions from other clients, but my dreams tended to be like I was on a mission, like a secret mission, and I had to do something to save everyone, and most likely I wasn't going to survive it. And
gosh.
I don't remember ever having those kind of dreams any other time in my life except for the past few years, and I'm trying to figure out something. So that could, and it seemed like it was more in the mold territory rather than, but it could have been overlapping from the Lyme territory of infections. But yeah, and and a lot of, most Lyme mold, and most mold people do have gut dysfunction, right? It's, which, great connects right to the brain. So but sometimes the brain seems, or the head seems to speak louder, even though your gut dysbiosis is causing so many issues. It just might not be as painful or noticeable in your what's going on day to day.
And yes, Carla,
Mhm.
no, I know that we don't have too much of time, so I actually would like you to share. I know it's going to be different for everybody, but when you did realize that mold was another big piece of this puzzle in your whole chronic health journey and your sleep, what are the ways that you tried to address it, and you still continue to? Was it to optimize detoxification? So what exactly did
Huge.
that look like for you in terms of food, protocols, supplements, anything else that you thought, mindset, stress response? What did you actually begin to piece together in terms of walking this walk towards managing mold?
Yeah, so you have to look at that whole, all the detox pathways, and really think about where are you in your life. I was cleaning out a house and I had to move. We didn't have anywhere to move. So the food wise, I was very, very good, but I have to give a, it was hard, right? So, and how can you, what way can you, other ways? So that whole stress piece and the whole sleep piece are things you can work on anywhere. And I tend to, I move a lot. I'm a movement person. I love yoga. I love being outside. And I made sure I got outside every day in the woods, those are things that I can do. I tried to really upgrade my sleep hygiene, right? And so those are, and stay away from some of the foods. I might not have got the best foods, but I would still stay away from the high hitters for me. But and that's like one of the first things, especially from a Chinese medicine perspective. It's that detox. Detox is so important. And what does that mean? Um, and it means doing things a little different that we try, and the whole, um, being hydrated is hugely important. Um, and so going, but what really matters is what can that person do at the time. You want to is that stress piece. You have to work through that whole stress and get back on the train of curiosity and learning. And again, every person is kind of different. That's why it's, you got to step back. What's the low hanging fruit? What is going to be most effective for me now? Um, but the things that really affect all the different systems of the body are all of those foundational things. But luckily, I had a lot of practice before the mold really set in.
And Carla, you did mention, yes, detoxification was a big part of it. So what did you actually do to help yourself improve detoxification?
And I would kind of shift through different phases. Um, I've used, my hydration, make sure my water is clean, and then, and actually, in my clinic, I use this salt saturation solution, that really alkalizes your body, and you prepare this saturated salt. This is just an example, and you drink like a teaspoon in a cup of water every day, and it creates this alkalinity. Again, there's a lot of different aspects of it, but mold and bacteria don't want to be in this kind of environment. And you look at your of course, you look at your poop all the time and use that as a symbol. How is your liver, and how is your gallbladder, how are you digesting this and that, giving you clues, and you try to kind of pinpoint things that are obvious. There's a lot of light therapy out there that seems to help a lot with mold and Lyme. So I infrared light. I got a little unit, and I actually, because my eyes really got messed up, and I would use that, and there's so many options to help the body. There's biomats, there's sauna. Sauna is huge. It's more than just infrared saunas. It's more than just getting you're sweating out. You're using your normal sweat to get rid of toxins. It helps in so many ways. Again, I think even down in the cellular level. So how many things can you do down at that level to help your body? So you're helping your body heal, helping your body detox. And so that's just a few ways. So I kind of go through, I have different categories I kind of go through. And like when you're talking with someone else, what do they have access to? And in the whole fascial system, which I love. So using your fascial system is huge, and we don't even know. Again, just like everything else, we don't know the ramifications of that good work that we can do. And if you're really in pain, you can just use it on your, fascial work on your feet, on your hands, and start with that. So that has always been a big. But sometimes I'll wake up and I don't feel well enough. I don't even think of those things. Like even for myself, it's hard. You're just
And I'm assuming the fascial work is also so good for improving overall body circulation, which is a big part of that puzzle as well. And it's deeply relaxing, so very helpful in shifting you to a parasympathetic state and supporting resilience and better sleep. I'm so glad you mentioned fascia in this, because I don't think that's a common thing I've heard from someone who's talked about mold. But I know, Carla, we're almost out of time in this episode. I'd like you to just quickly let us maybe conclude this by talking a little bit about some specific supplements or herbs that you used to boost detoxification, and how did you actually use them in what kind of a protocol for yourself?
So I started using traditional Chinese medicine, herbs. Once I think it was, healing from my first bout of Lyme disease. And then I was, in training, through this chronic Lyme disease, through the traditional Chinese perspective. And it was in training when I got reinfected, and I seemed to kind of buzz through that time a little bit quicker. But what I found, so I was a little bit in my journey, and I started these things, I felt better. But what I found is what's useful is using essential oils in liposomals, and then traditional Chinese herbs in combining essential oils and combining herbs, like about 10 of them in each thing, to really specifically address what is going on. Because when you're using these mixtures, I can't go far into them. You're using these mixtures, a lot of these essential oils or traditional Chinese herbs, they do many things at once. So when you're trying to heal, if you detox too much, your body can't handle it, right? It's always this play, especially with Lyme disease and its all its co-infections and mold disease. So it's an in and out. So with these herbs, there are microbials that can be heavy hitters like antibiotics, right? They're kind of a natural antibiotic. So some of these herbs and some of these essential oils really are capable of doing both. It's just amazing. And again, I'm not an expert at this, but I saw it on my own body. So you are supporting your own body system actually more than coming in with what you think is going to kill off whatever the infection is. So I don't even use the word kill off. I don't know why I used it right there. So and you can shift, and it's a process. It's not overnight. It's bringing you through the journey. And so and these things, we use some already formulas already, but you can kind of tweak them for every person because everyone's a little different. And what is showing up now? Is it mold? Is it or is it another infection or a virus? And then using those Chinese from a Chinese medicine perspective, you kind of look at how the body's doing and use the herbs in that way also. I mean, you can kind of look at it functionally, like a functional matrix, what's going on. But so I'm like in the middle of those trying to learn. And so you can create formulations that will really support, more support usually than microbial work where you're targeting what's going on. And some of these targeting is really based on symptomology. Sometimes there's testing to back it up, but it's kind of based on symptomology.
I love it, Carla. And I think the best thing that I got from our whole conversation was the fact that we don't just look at it as addressing one thing or a destination, but just accepting that it's a journey, it could be ongoing, and also that step back from this search for finding the magical protocol and instead just keep looking with curiosity all the time. So when you look with curiosity, rarely do you actually get caught in the trap of frustration. And usually that happens when you're in search of something and then you have expectations and then it doesn't come through as you expected it to. We have a mantra on the show, Carla, which I'd like you to complete. If sleep is the new medicine, then how would you complete that sentence for us to conclude the episode?
If sleep is the new medicine, how can we really focus on it to help us heal no matter what is going on in your life? What is our sleep? What kind of clues is our sleep giving us? And yeah.
Love it, Carla. I love it. I love it. I think you put that perfectly. And where can people find more about you if they'd like to just get a peek?
So
Journey.
I have a website, but I'm not very active on that. I'm still, I had a head injury a few months ago, and that kind of set me back quite a bit. And it's always been something like I'll get myself going. Oh, I'll update my website, but my focus is on who's ever in front of me needs help. That includes me. So my you can at least get a hold of me. It's not updated very well, but you have an idea of how I work somewhat.
That's perfect.
So that's
and I think it's
embrace
important.
A better you.
And I think that's so important what you shared, that, you're always helping, whether it's someone or yourself. And that's how I suppose, you're never caught up in that loop of feeling sorry for yourself. You're always just curious and going.
Well, that fear comes in, that frustration does come in, but you can't stop it from coming in, right? It comes in, and being human, it's just how much can you just let it flow on by, right? That is more successful than I look at that as success, because stopping it from ever coming in. Yeah.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, and for just giving us your time today. And I hope, Carla, that you keep continuing to stay as this curious detective.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Just a reminder that this podcast is for information purposes only. This is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or otherwise qualified health professional. This information is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you are looking for personal help on your health journey, do seek out a medical practitioner. Please do make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with your doctor or otherwise qualified healthcare professional. It is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as treatment or cure for any particular health condition. Be sure to always work directly with a qualified health practitioner before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle that may feel out of your realm of comfort or understanding. If you are looking for an allied functional medicine practitioner, do seek out more information on www.phytothrive.com. It is important that you have someone who is qualified and understands your health personally in order to provide adequate care, especially when it comes to chronic health conditions.